Kate, welcome back to another speed build. In this speed build I'm building a Mediterranean mansion on a 50 by 40 lot in Del Sol Valley. So I decided to once again build something that has a Mediterranean theme. I don't really know if this is really a Spanish mansion or more of a Italian style, but I was definitely going for a very summery, happy Mediterranean look, and I started off by building these stairs here. And for these I used a combination of foundation pieces and terrain, because you can connect foundations that have different heights, so I just used some terrain, so this is kind of a workaround. And if you want to place a fence there the way that I did, if you do it the regular way, the game is going to tell you that there are conflicting block clusters and it's not working. So what you can do is you simply place a piece of fence, then you pick it up and place it there. This is kind of a workaround. This way you can kind of cheat and the fence is working totally fine. So at this point the only thing that is kind of Mediterranean are the colors that I chose. So I now just try to add more little details that make it really look Mediterranean. I felt like a fountain would be really cool. This is something that you see a lot in Mediterranean mansions. I felt like this kind of adds a little summer vibe, and then I kind of didn't know if I would like to include some plants there, so I was just trying different things. I used this beautiful kind of border around the fountain. I really enjoyed the color, and these benches are part of the romantic stuff pack, and this little stone kind of rock is part of Jungle Adventure. So at this point it's kind of really coming together. And of course there is no house yet, just a front section, so this was kind of my initial inspiration. I developed an idea in my head for a little front section for the entry of the house, of the lot. So at this point I had no idea what the house would even look like. I just knew that I would like to build something Mediterranean. So once again, this is one of those builds where I just start off with a section and now I'm just adding more and more. So this is the beginning of the house on the left side. I'm just trying to work out the shape. I knew that I would like to add a little balcony, and I knew that I was going for this color definitely. I think that this wallpaper is part of Get Famous actually, so it's usually probably supposed to be used on the interior, but I think it's such a pretty color for a house like this. So the color combination that I was going for the exterior was this beautiful brown, this light brown or beige almost, in combination with some white and some dark brown. I think this really looks Mediterranean. It really has this kind of feel, but it still looks very happy, even though there's so much brown in it and it's technically quite dark at times. The white kind of lifts the whole mood and it just looks so friendly and so bright, so I really enjoy this type of combination. I used some base game windows. They have a round shape at the top, which I really like. As always, I used a lot of shelves to create my own custom freezers. It just adds more detail on the exterior and I really like the look. So at some points of the build, the top of the round shape of the windows that I just mentioned is just kind of hidden, but this depends on the window and where I just added these shelves and where I didn't add them. I feel like the brown shelves just add more warmth again, and you can just create this contrast once again between the white and the dark brown. And then I decided to add a flower bed in the front. I'm going to use a lot of cypress trees for this build and a lot of the red rocks, so I just kind of feel this is a very easy way to make a build look very Mediterranean, and it really gives this build, or any build really, a very pronounced kind of Spanish or Italian feel. Of course you could also use completely other plants to achieve this look, but for me, when I just see these trees, it just screams Mediterranean to me, at least in combination with a build that has this type of style. I've also used them for other builds, so you can also totally use them for completely different looks, but as soon as you combine them with a build like this, it just looks so Mediterranean in my opinion. So after I kind of finished the exterior of the section on the left, I decided to move white to the front section, and this is kind of the most important part of a build. You want a build to look kind of balanced, so the section in the center, the entry, should kind of stand out. It should stand out more than any other part of the house, for example the one on the left side. So I really enjoyed how the section on the left side turned out, and now I kind of had to one-up myself because I felt like I really had to make the front section stand out so it looks balanced, and this is kind of what I tried to do here. So I decided to add the Get Famous arch, as you just saw. For this I just added a basement underneath. I changed the size and then I kind of raised it up so it has the correct position. I then decided to add a kind of round balcony at the top and some trellis. To create the trellis I used a half wall, the lowest possible height. I'm going to add multiple trellis to this house, and this is just a very small one. Again, as I said, I really wanted the section in the front to stand out, so I felt like this is kind of a way to add a little bit of detail, and I feel like all the trellis really make this build look even more Mediterranean and also kind of unique. I don't know, but the trellis just give this just such a lovely Mediterranean summery feel. I don't know. The trellis consists of multiple individual beams, and at the end of each beam I added a basecamp wall decoration that is called the Mega Wall Hung. It's just a little woodlock basically, and this way it almost looks like each beam kind of expands, so it looks like that this is kind of the end of each beam. This is something that is used a lot in Mediterranean builds on the walls, and it looks really nice, and I feel like this is kind of a way to use this object, so it kind of makes sense, if you know what I mean. For example, all the core builds, the way that I use them isn't probably realistic, and the same goes for this little decoration. I think I've never used it in a way that kind of makes sense, but this is the fun of The Sims. You can do whatever you want and have some fun with it, but I felt like adding this object there kind of made sense, and it really adds to the look. I felt like the trellis just looks so much more realistic and better this way. Here you can watch me struggle to build a diagonal trellis. It kind of didn't make sense. I was confused and I changed it multiple times, but then I kind of surrendered to the trellis, and this is how I left it. This is kind of what I decided to make it look. I fought against the diagonal wall restrictions and I lost. Now I think this looks nice, so I just added another trellis there on the side and some windows, and this is kind of where I tried to connect the section on the left side with the front section. I decided to build this beautiful diagonal gable roof so I could just add a nice window in the center. This window is part of cats and dogs. I just love this window. Whenever I add a window to a roof like this, I really enjoy to use this type of window. And also some of the StrangerVille windows look really nice if you want to add them to a roof, in my opinion. Here I'm just filling in foundation pieces. So building this was generally quite the crazy experience because, as you saw, I just kind of tried to work out the shape of the house. I just started with the front section. I had no idea what I'm even doing there. Sometimes I start with a front section and then I have no idea what house to build really, and then it just stopped building, so I never know what happens, and it kind of makes me sad when I feel like the front section looks so nice and I really enjoy it, but there's just no house that I can come up with that really goes along with it, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I had no idea, but then as you saw, I just kind of tried to work out what I would like to build, and it was really crazy, which is why there were some foundation pieces missing that I had to fill in whenever I'm building something big like this in different sections. Sometimes there's something missing and I really have to kind of almost clean up in the end, and then you see that there is something missing, or I don't know, it was just really crazy how the whole build came together. And here I'm adding more trellis. There are no more trellis in the front, this is it. I just decided to have a big trellis section on the right side. The other trellis are quite small and I just decided to add them so I have a little decoration, but this is really the main section. I'm going to add a table there so the Sims can hang out and sit, and there's going to be a giant one in the back because I really wanted to add a huge barbecue area, and I always try to make the back look the same as the front, so I felt like there is kind of a trellis theme going on in this build, so I really wanted to continue this in the back. And if you want to build a trellis yourself, you can either use half walls or you could simply use a fence. Especially the very small, very low fences are perfect for this. And what you do is you simply almost build a room, a square or a rectangle, and then you use your little sledgehammer tool and you remove the floor, and then you just add your little beams in little sections, and that's it. And in case there should appear some floor again, you again use your sledgehammer tool and just remove the floor, and that's it. You can add some freezers, the smaller freezers, and just make it look nice and do whatever you want and have some fun with it. And I decided to have another flower bed on the right side. I used the same flowers and trees and rocks, so it kind of all makes sense and goes together quite well. I decided to use a little bit of rocks on the right side to hide part of the terrain, and I added a bench. The Sims can go down, and if you look at the right side, the trellis, there are some stairs leading down, so the Sims can actually enter the front yard. And I used these Jungle Adventure vases, and I just placed some of the base game little palm tree plants inside because I felt like those look so Mediterranean beautiful. And again, I'm trying to kind of create a contrast, so I decided to use a table that is white so it looks balanced, it makes sense. And at this point, the shape of the house is almost done. This is what the house looks like in the front. I'm just going to add another section in the back, and then of course I'm going to work on the exterior and the back. Furnishing this was a lot of work. As you will see, I really tried to make it look very Mediterranean. I put a lot of love in this, and what I'm especially proud of, I built a little pantry next to the kitchen. I really tried to create a really unique interior and put a lot of love into this. And there are, I didn't mention this I think yet, but there are 6 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, and there's 1 master bedroom, 2 regular bedrooms for grown-ups or teenagers, and 3 kids rooms. So there's plenty of space in this house, which is why it took me multiple days to finish this. At first it took quite some time to finish the exterior, and then furnishing is always a lot of work. And at first I didn't even realize how big this house is, because 50 by 40 doesn't sound too big. I mean, it is big. This is by no means a small house, but I don't know, it almost felt like furnishing a 64 by 64, I think, because the house itself is quite big and starts on the left and goes all the way to the right, if you know what I mean. I didn't really do a lot of landscaping on the side, so the house is quite big. I added multiple living rooms, so yeah. In fact, the house is so big and there are so many rooms that I had to cut out parts of this. So for the furnishing process, you're going to see how I'm working on the kitchen, on the living room, dining room, master bedroom, and just multiple rooms. But I couldn't include all the footage because this took many hours. But I included some floor plans in the end. I actually drew in the floor plan over it so you could really see where one room ends and another one starts, and I added some text so you could see where the kitchen is and all that. So I really put some love into the floor plan so you can get a nice overview, so you can decide if you want to use this lot, because as always, this is of course available in the gallery. I'm going to add all the information down below. And here I'm working on the back section. I added some arches. This is kind of the centerpiece of the back of the house, I would say. So just like I created a entry section that really stands out, I tried to create this section in the back that kind of is the eye catcher. Again, some more smaller trellis at the top, and then one big at the bottom. And at first I didn't realize that this is not symmetrical. If you take a close look, the section on the right side is wider. You can easily see this when you count the beams of the trellis, and I kind of noticed this too late, but then I fixed it. So this really bothers me, you know. Sometimes there are things that just have to be symmetrical for me, or drives me crazy. I really wanted this to be symmetrical, so I changed this, as you will see. And this is, just the barbecue section. Your Sims can hang out here, sit on the outside, and enjoy the lovely weather in view. I built this in the pinnacles of Del Sol Valley, so there's a beautiful view. And then I added another balcony here, and I really tried to keep the garden, I would say, quite realistic and traditional. There's going to be a beautiful lavish pool with some decorations around it, but you're going to see what I'm talking about. So usually I only work on the garden as the last step basically, but this time I decided to at first work on the exterior, then the garden, and then the interior, because I don't know, just felt like building a beautiful garden. I really enjoy how simple this garden is, how I kind of created the different sections. It doesn't seem to be all over the place. You have the little terrace where the Sims can hang out, the little patio, then you have the pool, and then a little area where the kids can hang out and play, but you're going to see what I'm talking about in a couple of seconds. For this build I used a different roof than for my other Mediterranean builds. I think for my other builds I used the base game roof, because if you are only playing with the base game and if you want to create your own kind of Mediterranean build or something that's Mexican, Spanish, I don't know, anything really, you can use a lot of base game objects actually, because every pack kind of delivers a set of furniture and objects for a specific type of style. Of course, you can always do your own thing, you can combine things in a very unique way, and you can really build anything in this game, but there's kind of really always a specific theme going on, and for the base game there is a set of objects that is really suitable for anything that's kind of Mediterranean or something that you might see in New Mexico or something. So you can really create a build like this if you only play with the base game, so you will find a lot of lovely objects there. And also I kind of feel like building another base game build. I don't know if you guys would be interested in seeing that. Let me know in the comments down below if I should do another base game build, because honestly I kind of feel like building another, maybe a base game mansion. I don't know what style yet, but yeah, let me know what you think about that, or if you have any other kind of request. And here you just saw how I built the pool. I added a little roof on top, so it does look extra. This is really a proper Mediterranean mansion garden. This is not a regular garden, but I feel like the sections that I created make sense. As I said, the flower bed, and then the monkey bars and the swing set in between, and the pool is right in front of the patio, which kind of also makes sense, so you can kind of watch your kids when they are playing in the pool, for example. Of course, this is The Sims and not real life, but I think you know what I mean. I always kind of love to combine crazy ideas with a kind of realistic idea. And here I'm starting to work on the interior. I wanted to have some wooden beams at the top, and to do that I used some spandrels. At first I had to add a fence for this at the bottom to create them, and then I removed the fence using the sledgehammer tool, because when I kind of tried to remove them the normal way, it also deleted the spandrels. So this is kind of how I made it work. If you have the walls up all the way, these are going to be visible, but if you like to play with only the walls in the back being up, then these are going to disappear. I left them up for building this, so I kind of had an overview how it all looks and how it all goes together. But these won't block your view, these won't be in the way if you don't have the walls all the way up. But this is down to you. You could of course also remove them, but I really wanted to have a really Mediterranean rustic interior. So the whole interior has a lot of wood and these floors, and just really try to incorporate a Mediterranean vibe. I'm going to switch out this dining table later though, so I decided to add a dining table to the kitchen, but I'm also going to build a separate dining room, and the dining room is huge. It's really such a festive, huge, luxurious room that is perfect if you have some guests over, but I feel like so the build is more manageable, and so it's much easier to play in this. I really want to include a table to the kitchen. This way, if your Sims hang out in the kitchen and they cook and they eat, there is enough space for everyone to sit down, because you don't want your Sims to walk long distances all the time. A build also has to be manageable. And here I used a little trick that I learned in a SimArchy stream. You can add a dishwasher to a counter, and then you size it down, and then you have a teeny tiny little dishwasher underneath, but you have these type of counters. So you just have the surface, and then it's kind of, you have a little gap underneath, just like you see in some counters in real life. We don't have that in The Sims. You have to use CC counters for this usually, but with this little trick it's possible. you just have to place something underneath to kind of hide the tiny dishwasher. And I tried to add a lot of clutter to this build, so it was just very easy to hide the dishwasher in this case. Check out Summery if you haven't yet. She's just the best and her streams are so amazing. I always learn something new in her stream. I learned how to sort by color. I also learned the little dishwasher trick. She's just so inspiring and amazing. So here I'm working on a pantry. This house is really big, as I said. So when you have a house that is so big, you kind of have to come up with a floor plan that makes sense, and you have to fill up all the room, all the big space that you have. And I felt like a pantry is something that I have never done before, and it could be a lot of fun. I try to incorporate more and more clutter in my builds. This is something that I have struggled with in the beginning, and I felt like having a little pantry with a lot of clutter would be fun and challenging. I added another fridge to this because technically the pantry is just decoration, so I felt like adding another fridge would kind of make it more, I don't know, so it just has a purpose, if you know what I mean. Here, at least in Germany, it's kind of common to have, I don't know, another separate freezer in the basement or somewhere, or in another room if you have the space. Some people have this. So I feel like this is kind of a situation like this. You have the fridge in the kitchen, and then you just have a freezer in another room, even though this is a fridge in this case. I just wanted to make it look good and a little bit functional. Of course, you could also add something else. I added these lamps on the walls because I felt like this makes it look more like a utility room or something, not like a proper, like a living room or something. I felt like it was good that these aren't the most beautiful lights, if you know what I mean. And this is the huge dining room. I really tried to make this room, even though it's huge, to make it look not too huge. You know, when a room is too big and you don't have enough furniture in it, it just looks too big and it doesn't look cozy and inviting. So what I did was I added some columns and again some spandrels in between. I then added multiple rugs, so the whole space is kind of filled in, and I feel like it kind of works because it's good that this room is so big. It's such a big, festive, beautiful room. So this way there's just enough space to have Sims over, and I'm also going to add a little bar, and I added some clutter and plants and just some candles and some different things. For the windows, I used the curtains that are part of Get Famous actually, sized them down and then moved them up because I combined some other windows with the round base game windows, so I kind of had to come up with some curtains that made sense. And here I'm just adding some paintings on the wall, and I think that this room turned out super cozy and nice, and lots of candles. I felt like because of the lamps that I used for the rooms at the ceiling lamps, I felt like adding more candles just kind of ties it together and it looks beautiful. I also really love this wallpaper for a Mediterranean build, just perfect. This is the hallway. I added a little chess area and just a little area to sit and hang out. So even for the hallways, I kind of tried to include stuff that is useful, so your Sims can actually use the space. They can sit down and play on the piano, they can play some chess and do some different funny things. There was a lot of space to fill in this build, but I really tried to make sure that every space is just kind of functional. And this is the living room. I felt like this room is just perfect to be used as a living room because there's a big space in between the windows, and I really wanted to add a TV, of course. There are two main living rooms. First off, this room with a TV, kind of the TV room you could say, and then there's another room with a beautiful fireplace where your Sims can just sit down and read. I also added a little reading corner to this room though, because I felt like it just looks so cozy and beautiful. Some books at the bottom and multiple flowers. I again wanted to make this look very Mediterranean, warm and inviting. And then I added these, I think, base game sofas. I just felt like the color is so perfect, and it just, there's a lot of stuff going on. As I said, I tried to incorporate more clutter, more decoration, so it looks very lived in and beautiful. Some books and just some paintings on the wall, and I really love how this very inviting living room turned out. What I really love about this room is that it's just so bright and so happy. To be honest, I feel like Del Sol Valley has the most beautiful light. Like in every world, the light is a little bit different. I've talked about this before in Willow Creek, for example. I feel like the light has such a slight green tint to it, which I don't really enjoy, to be honest. And here in Desert Valley, it's just so sunny and beautiful, which makes sense because obviously this world is supposed to be LA basically. At least it was inspired by LA, I'm sure, or any other kind of city in California. And it's just such a beautiful light. It's so happy and so warm when it shines through the windows. And this is one of the kids' rooms. As I mentioned earlier, there are 3 kids' rooms in total in this build. This is just a beautiful blue kind of green room. I tried to combine the 2 different colors, so it's not just blue. I really wanted to throw in some green in the mix. The kids' rooms don't really look as rustic and Mediterranean as the rest of the rooms, because I feel like a kids' room should really show the personality of the kid. It should just look kid-friendly, so I really just included some quite typical decorations and toys for a kids' rooms. I sized down the dollhouse. I saw this, I think, maybe on Facebook or Twitter, I don't remember, but someone said that you can simply size down the huge doll houses and they are just as functional as before because they're just so ridiculously huge. I don't really like the look, so I sized them down. And this is one of the bedrooms. This bedroom does look Mediterranean rustic in my opinion. I added a lot of dark brown and just different kind of things, and I really like how this turned out. And as I said, I didn't record other rooms because this house is just so big and this video is already so long, but I included the floor plan so you can take a close look at what the house looks like, and of course also screenshots, and you can find this house in the gallery as I mentioned. And this is it, guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. Here you can see the screenshots and floor plans. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe, and I hope that I will see you in the next video. Bye bye.